You too. Hey guys, welcome to the Bandzoogle webinar. I am Desi, and today's topic is music SEO, how to optimize your website for great results in search engines. And today we have with us Wes, who's our resident SEO expert. So we'll just be sharing some tips and best practices. We just want to make sure that you guys can see and hear both of us. So if you can see us and hear us without a problem, go ahead and let us know in the chat box what your name is, where you're from, and share your website with us. We're going to be using some examples during the live webinar. So if you share your website, we might use it during the webinar today. We also have a poll going, so be sure to answer that. And I can see that we have some people jumping in. So we got a lot to get covered today. Feel free to share your website anytime, ask any questions that you have. We'll be stopping here and there to answer some of those. So I'll let Wes get started.
Awesome. Hey guys, my name is Wes Falls. As Desi mentioned, I'm head of growth marketing at Bandzoogle, and something we do a lot of and talk about a lot of is SEO for musicians. And we did a panel about it a few weeks ago at South by Southwest, which was a lot of fun, and we got to talk to some people about this topic. So we're basically taking that discussion and bringing it here. So this is kind of the next thing we're doing after having done that panel. So South by Southwest, this is the next best thing, maybe even better. So yeah, it looks like everyone's kind of logging on there. I can see there's people from all over the place, which is really cool. So yeah, really excited to talk to you guys about this. Done a lot of prep to get it ready and things like that. So we're ready to go. So we've got a lot of ground to cover, as Desi mentioned. So I think I'll just jump right into the slide. Just get that started here. We're gonna probably move through the slides pretty quickly. I won't stop too much. If you have any questions, feel free to post them in chat. There's some slides that'll kind of prompt us, and we'll stop and take questions, and Desi will kind of keep an eye out for those in chat, and then we'll talk about them when we get to those slides. So first thing first, can everyone see the slides? I think it looks good.
Yeah, it looks good.
Perfect. So we'll start with the live poll here. Do you have a dedicated website for your band? We're going to talk a bit later in the panel about why that matters, but it's a good place to start. It's kind of a core, really important thing to have. So I think Desi's going to launch the poll there right now, and you can answer that. I don't know if you need to add anything there, Desi, for people to keep an eye out for. Or?
Nope, you should already see it. I see a lot of people have already been responding to it. So
perfect.
We'll keep
Okay,
that open for a little while.
Cool. Yeah, we'll keep it open. Yeah, exactly. And then we'll get back to it in a little bit, and we'll talk about it. So another thing, music SEO hashtag on Twitter. So we're going to keep an eye on this throughout the panel. Not me, but other members of the team. I think Desi might be looking, keeping an eye on it. And after the webinar, I'll jump in there. So if anybody basically has any questions, if you want to have any kind of conversations, back channel conversations during the webinar, feel free to use that hashtag. And then I will jump in there afterwards if anybody has any questions, and we can kind of continue the conversation there. So feel free to use that, and just another way for us to kind of talk about this topic. So another thing that we'll have for you after this is some goodies. So if you are not already a Bandzoogle member, you can sign up with the promo code Music SEO. We'll share it with you again afterwards, and we'll give you a free SEO site review. So we have a team of website experts on our support team, and They have a little kind of process to follow to help you with some SEO questions. And if you are a Bandzoogle member already and you have any questions about SEO, feel free to reach out to us, the support team, and we'll help you out. So we'll also send you a little to-do checklist. So we're going to talk about some like kind of high-level ideas and stuff, but we'll also have some specific things that you can do. So just following up after this webinar, this will kind of help you to actually take some actions. There'll be a recording of the webinar if you need it, and also a link to the ebook and other resources. So just what that's all about. We published an ebook earlier this year that talks about all the stuff we're going to talk about today, but goes into a lot more detail. So if there are any things you want to dig deeper into, that ebook will be a good resource for you. So we'll share that with you afterwards. So our agenda today, we're going to talk about why SEO matters to you at all, like why bother at all with it. So of course we'll have some good answers as to why. I'll talk a little bit about how SEO fits into your marketing strategy. We come up with this kind of idea called the fan journey to illustrate that. Finding your bank keywords, the search engine results pages, that's what SERP stands for. Optimizing your band website, establishing your Google accounts, creating wiki entries, and schema markups. So those are the things we're going to try to cover in the next hour. So yeah, get right to it. And yeah, before we start, just a really quick little bit of information about Bandzoogle. If you're already a member, of course, this is not news to you, but if you are not a member, Bandzoogle is a website platform that's made for musicians. So if you need a website, if you don't have one yet, or if you don't like the website that you have now, Bandzoogle might be a good solution for you. 30,000 musicians use Bandzoogle already. So we have lots of nice themes we'll be putting out. It's really easy to build a website, manage it. There's no coding required. We have nice design tools and stuff that make it really easy to build a nice looking site really quickly. You don't have to learn how to become a web developer. And you can also sell music merch tickets to fans directly without paying anything extra, no commission, no extra charges of any kind. Everything's included in the plan. Even comes with a free domain name. And you can use some of our built-in marketing tools to grow your fan base, like mailing list tools, send out newsletters, that kind of things to your fans. It's all included in the plan. So you can check that out. That's what we're all about. So that's that bit. And so yeah, live poll. So we have another one to look at, but how's the first one? How'd the first one turn out there?
Looks like 89% of our attendees right now already have their own website.
Perfect. Okay, cool. Well, that's a good start. Yeah, so for those of you that do not yet, this hopefully will kind of convince you a little bit to build one, because it's really important for SEO. And if you do already have one, then that's already kind of a big step out of the way. And we'll kind of talk about how you can use that to improve your results from SEO. So the next question is, are you already doing your own music SEO? So is this something that you're looking at doing, or just seeing whether it's worth your while to look at, or are you already doing it and hoping to just kind of use your time maybe more effectively, or figure out how to do it, how to get better results from it? So that's our next poll question. So we'll get back to that in a bit. Okay, cool. So we have some live examples. So I noticed a bunch of you guys added your websites there. So I can pick one at random, or Desi, did you already happen to pick one or two that we could go from? Or
I sent a couple over to you.
Oh, perfect. Okay. Okay, perfect. So let me just open up here. Go to my browser. We'll just look really quickly at at some of the search results for some of the band names or artist names that you guys have shared. So no judgment here if any of the results aren't spectacular. Obviously, that's not what we're expecting. I'll show you a little bit later what some what we're kind of going for, what some good results look like. So let's start with let's see here. Oops, just gonna grab this URL here. So this is. I'll open it up in a new tab just to get that. I just want to get basically the name of the artist basically. So C Major Porter, we chose you. So yeah, so there we go. So basically, what we'll look at a lot today, and I'll explain why, is just even just your basic band name searches. So if you search for Major Porter, that's because that's a unique name. A lot of times, a lot of musicians have names that are not that unique. So, like myself, my name is not that uncommon, so I have a similar problem. So, yeah, so okay, so here, these research results are obviously a little bit personalized to me, where I happen to be and that kind of thing. So I'm getting some other kind of brands that also have a similar name, like Porter Airlines. And I can see that your band website is here, which is great. There's a lot of more information, and I'll show you where that information can appear. But we can basically, what we can work on is making this a lot more branded to your artist, your artist brand, and having a lot more information for fans to find here when they search for your band name. So that's a lot of times a really important place to start for musicians, because a lot of times this is the case, where there just is not a lot of information for fans if they do actually search for you specifically. So that's usually a good starting point. Another one here we'll quickly look at. I'll pull up one more here. So Carly and Martina, we have chosen you, and actually I won't pull up your website here. I'll actually just search for albums. My computer is a little slow here, but so if you search for your albums, we'll see what Google gives us here. So so this is interesting. So basically, your website's showing up, and people are able to find your albums on your website, which is great. So that's not bad. I'm guessing maybe you only have one album out so far, so that's actually what is being reflected in Google search results. That's not bad, actually. That's pretty good. If you do have more albums, obviously those are missing, and we can we'll show you later how to make sure that those will appear here. But this is the kind of thing we're going for, is kind of improving some of these kinds of keywords. So we will show you how to get there and show you some examples of what can be done. And by the way, you don't have to be a famous artist to get these search results, kind of nice search results happening. You don't have to be a huge artist to do good SEO. So there's a lot of things we can do to help, regardless of that. So let's move on to the slide. Go back to the slides here. So let's talk a little bit about why SEO matters. Obviously, this is a good place to start. First thing is that a lot of people use search engines. There's about maybe somewhere in the area of about 6.5 billion searches per day that are made. So there's a lot of searches. Not surprising, something like 95% of adults in the U.S. use search engines. That's probably the same for most other countries. So it's no big surprise there. Everyone uses search engines. So it's important to pay attention to it. It's free. So that can't be said for, the same can't be said for, for Facebook, where you may have to, pay for boosting posts and things like that. This is completely free traffic. You can do it yourself. And it's, it's good quality traffic generally. So free is good. Another reason that it's important, you can guide fans to the right content. So if people are searching for your albums, or they're searching for specific songs, or they're searching for specific tour dates that you might be promoting, upcoming tour dates, you can make sure you can use search engines to make sure that fans are guided to the right content so that they can find it easily. Of course, search engines are always about helping, all about helping people to find things they're looking for. So, optimizing search engines means just helping them find the content that they're looking for. So making sure that you have the content and that people can find it. And related to that, you can sometimes earn more money, because if people are searching for ways to buy from you, buy T-shirts or tickets or whatever, if people are searching for that, then you want to make sure that they can easily find that. So guiding people to pages where they can buy from you, ideally without you having to pay any commission, things like that. So, so that for some artists is something to consider. And you can extend your artist branding into the search results pages. So like we saw in some of those examples a minute ago, there was very little in the way of brand presence on those pages. So that's something we can improve on. It's just actually, people search for your band or your songs or whatever. You can actually you can actually have be communicating your own brand right in Google results before they even click on any results. Or any websites. So those are some of the main benefits. So we'll talk a little bit about, this is basically an illustration to help kind of understand where SEO fits best into a band marketing strategy. So we took a concept called the customer journey, which is something that's kind of a common marketing framework, and we just kind of reimagined it for musicians, thinking about basically how you acquire fans, and the path that a fan would take through different touch points on the journey to becoming a fan. So it's really kind of putting us in looking through the eyes of a fan or a potential fan, and understanding how they might eventually interact with your content and things like that, and how they eventually become a fan of yours. So that's kind of a general framework, and then with that we can kind of understand better where search engines might come into play, because they don't necessarily come into play throughout the whole journey. So we'll talk a little bit about that. So let's start with the first step, which is discovery. So this is obviously the part of getting fans, or of growing your fan base, that is the hardest, and usually the most popular kind of thing to talk about for artists. And it's for SEO, it's not one that this isn't a part of the fan journey where SEO really plays a huge role. So just to give you an example, one of the examples that we actually used was like Indie Band in Toledo, or Indie Band anywhere really. If you look look at how many people search for keywords like that, it's really nothing, because fans just don't discover new music by searching for things in Google. So helping your music gain exposure in search engines is really tough, because people are generally looking for something specific, and they don't look for music that way. They're usually fans will generally discover music in different ways, like in this illustration, like music blogs, radio, playlists, word of mouth, recommendation engines, things like that. There's one idea that some people have had, which is experimenting with affinity searches. So I'll talk a bit about that a little bit later, but it's a bit experimental. There's nothing really tangible that we could really say about that in terms of being effective. But where SEO really does come into play is in the exploration portion. So once somebody has heard your band name, maybe somebody's recommended it to you, or they heard it on a, like we said in the last step, they heard it on a playlist, or maybe they heard it's playing in the grocery store and they remembered it, got caught in their head, and they remembered some of the lyrics or whatever. This is where search engines could come in, is because at that point they want to know if they liked what they heard, or they want to learn more about you. One of the first places they may turn is to search engines to look for your band or your music. So this is where for building your fan base, this is where search engines can really play a big part, and that's why we focus a lot on band keywords. So basically, this is all about just making sure that you have the content and that people can find it. Next slide here. So yeah, things fans might search for. They might search for your website if they want to learn more about who you are, and they just want to get some general information, what you look like, things like that. They might want to see your social profiles so they can see what you're talking about, what you're doing. If you're still active, there's a lot of, people like to see that there's things going on all the time. They might want to find music that they can listen to, stream, with videos they can watch, reviews, interviews, tour dates, things like that. So there's a lot of things that fans might look for once they've heard about you. And so we just want to make sure that they can find those things. That's basically the crux of it for SEO for this stage of the fan journey. And so, yeah, we'll pause here for a moment for questions. Desi, do you have any questions?
Yep. So Jenny wants to know if SEO reaches all foreign countries, and is it translated to their local native language?
It would be. Google is, there's obviously, of course, Google is all over the world and in all kinds of different languages. And so if you're looking to get traffic from, to get fans from your local market in the language that you're that's in your market, then presumably your website would be in that language, and the keywords that people search would be in that language. So yeah, it works the same way. If you were trying to, if you're saying, I don't know, let's just say Italy, and you are looking to target or grow your fan base in like the US, for example, you're going to want to think about English content and keywords too, but it really depends on what you're after.
And then Carly and Martina wanted to know, they're looking to promote a new single that they have coming out on Friday.
Okay. And how to use SEO for that?
Yep.
So I think the best thing you can do for that is to make sure that if people are, when people hear the single, how might they hear it? If they've kind of seen it on a playlist or something like that, and they know the name of the song, they might search for the name of the song in Google to see if they like it and they want to see what album it came from, or if they just want to if they want to add it to a playlist on Spotify or whatever. That might be something to think about, or lyrics. So if they have maybe just heard it offhand while they were not really paying attention, but they just heard, they heard it in the car or whatever, and it kind of caught in their head. They go home and they search for the lyrics, like the hook or something, lyrics from the hook. You might want to make sure that you have something ranking for those things. So, yeah, so the couple ways to do that, just making sure that you have the content on your website. This is the first thing, like making sure that you have the lyrics on your site somewhere. That way Google can crawl it, and if it's a specific term, people can find it that way. And on your website too, you might want to think about having a dedicated page for that track that's kind of optimized with keywords specific to that song, like having the song name in the URL and in the H1 tag and things like that, and then having content for fans to interact with, like whether it's like whether it's like a player that they can listen to the song there, or they can maybe download it, pay to download it, or whatever. So yeah, I think that would be probably the best strategy for that.
Cool. So we'll keep rolling on. If anyone else has questions, keep posting them in the chat, and we will, like I said, be answering them throughout the webinar.
Awesome. Cool. So we're 26 minutes in, so I'm going to start powering through. We have a lot of ground to cover here. So fan journey, purchase phase. So this is another place where, as I mentioned, SEO is really important, because if you have a fan who wants to spend money on you, you really want to make sure that they can find a place to spend it. So that's where you can use SEO to guide people to those places. Some things I might want to search for this phase would be tour date info, where to buy tickets, where to download your music, buy your music. They may want to buy merch of different types, somewhere they can stream your music, things like that. So that's where SEO can come into play in a big way in the fan journey. So the last phase here was retention and advocacy. Those are the last two phases that kind of just combine them, because those are not really key places for SEO. This is where this is the stage in the fan journey where these are people who are already kind of like super fans in a way. They're core fans. They already follow you on social media. They're on your mailing list, things like that. So they don't necessarily need search engines to find you. But in some cases, it might be useful. Like if you launch a crowdfunding project and you want to make sure that people can find that easily. If they search for your band name and then the word crowdfunding or something like that. So that's just to give you an idea of where SEO fits in. Maybe we can skip this slide. Hey, Desi, because we kind of just screamed through those last few slides there.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so we have a bunch more question slides coming up. So if you are waiting for an answer, don't worry. So keywords. So this is kind of like when it comes to actually starting to work on your SEO, this is really fundamental. So keywords are the starting point for SEO. Anytime an SEO person would start an SEO project, they would go first to see where how people are searching. So it's really important that you know what keywords you want to target before you start. So this little screenshot here is just an example that I put together for the ebook. It's in the ebook, and just shows you some how many people are searching for those specific keywords. Tame Impala obviously is like a pretty well-known band, but you might find that you have search volume for your band name as well. You might not, but it's really important to at least understand, get an understanding of that and do some research and brainstorm a little. So brainstorming. This is obviously this is always a starting point for keyword research. So thinking about what people might search to find you or your content. So they might look for keywords related to tour dates. So they might look for specific, like your band name plus a venue or plus city or whatever, or they might just look for tour. They might look for specific bits of lyrics, like hook lyrics, snippets of hook lyrics. They might look for tabs. They might just look for lyrics in general, like your song name, a name of your song plus lyrics. They might look for specific albums, songs. They might look for stuff like to do with your bio, or to learn a little bit about who you are, band members, things like that, discography. They might look for things like merch, vinyl, tickets, T-shirts, posters, things to buy. YouTube, torrent. If I don't know if anybody searches for that anymore, but places to download, to listen. And they might even look for, like, if they heard you in a commercial. This is something that we talked about in the panel at Southwest, which is, I know there were some examples of this where some a band had a placement in a commercial. So if somebody might look for, they might search for the song that was in the Apple commercial, kind of thing. So if you have any of those placements like that, just making sure that if people want to find out who that band was, you have some content there to guide them to you. So that's a place to start. So once you have some ideas of how people might search for you, there are some tools that can help you find out how many people are searching for those keywords. Best free one is the one from Google themselves, which is the Google keyword tool. It's kind of hidden inside the AdWords interface, so it's a bit of a hassle to get to, but it is free. There are some instructions in the ebook on how to do that. There are other free ones that aren't very good, and there are paid ones that are good. But I don't think anybody wants to really pay for a keyword tool when you can get a good one for free. It's just a bit of hassle. So if you want to learn how to do that, you can check out the ebook. So basically, you can plug in your keywords into this tool and end up with a list like we showed you in a couple of slides ago, which gives you an idea of how people are searching for your band. If you find that there are no searches for your band yet, which might be the case if you haven't yet built a big fan base, that's not a big deal. It just means that you have to kind of guess a little bit more. So just going with the brainstorming you did and try to come up with some keywords that you think people might use, and then just work around that. And then as you grow your fan base, keep an eye on these search volumes in the keyword tool to see if anything's happening with those search patterns. So this is something that comes up a lot with bands and musicians, is common names like my own name, and other examples like Broken Back here, which is a band from France. And so what happens a lot is that if your name is not unique, you can kind of compete in search results for other things, like we saw in the example with Porter Airlines. So that's really common. So it's important when you're researching your keywords just to keep that in mind. Like if you see a search volume for, if your band name was Broken Back and you saw the search volume, you might think that you're a huge celebrity, but it's actually a lot of that is people searching for the medical condition. And you can see that if you do a little refinement of the search term to specify the band, you can see that there are searches for the band. Some of these searches are probably for the band as well. So that's just something to bear in mind when you're looking at keywords and thinking about how people might be searching. So we'll stop here for questions, if we have any.
Can you do a little overview on what members can actually do with the keywords? I think there's a little bit of confusion thinking that just entering these keywords somewhere on their website will cause them to automatically come up in Google.
Okay, yeah. So this phase is really just about research. It's about basically just understanding how people are searching, because we want to make sure that when we're optimizing, search engine optimization is all about optimizing your presence for certain search terms. So if somebody searches for your band name, you want to make sure that that's the result you're keeping an eye on, and that's what you're optimizing towards is better, higher ranking or whatever for that specific search term. So it's really important to know what search terms you're after, that you want to optimize around. So that's really what this process is about, is just understanding how people are searching and deciding what search terms matter to you. So it doesn't actually, there's nothing tangible from that step, but it's really kind of fundamental to kind of guiding everything else that you'll do later. To go back to maybe just one of the examples we talked about earlier, where you have an album release. In that case, you want to think about, a single release. You want to think about how people might search for that single. So like we said, it's probably the song name, bits of lyrics, things like that. So it's really kind of making a list of those kinds of terms that people might use to find you.
And then we'll do one more question. In terms of SEO, are you at an advantage if you have a very unique name?
Yes, because if you have a name that is not unique, essentially you're having to kind of battle the other thing that has that name. So like a really good example is one of our team members here at Bandzoogle. He had a band name that he actually recently changed because it was called, his band name was called London Has Fallen. And then the movie came out. And then, so he used to get, obviously he used to have pretty good visibility for his band name. The moment the, Hollywood movie comes out, of course, he disappears because, the Hollywood movie is much more, famous than his own band, unfortunately. So in those cases, you can kind of get, it can be really difficult just to get visibility on search results pages for your own band, your own keywords, your own band keywords. If you're having to compete with other things that are famous or that kind of thing. So so definitely it is an advantage to have a unique name. Cool. Is that it for now, or?
Let's go on to the next set of slides.
Set of slides, perfect. So let's take a quick look at what we're kind of going for here. So we saw earlier with some of the examples we looked at, there was there was not necessarily a lot of information for fans to find yet. So this is an example of a page that does have that. So it's kind of a good example of what we're going for. Elephant Stone is the name of the band. So you can see on the right-hand side, you have the knowledge panel, which is something we're kind of all familiar with, I think, where you have, the name of the band, what they are. They're a rock band. There's a bit of bio information from Wikipedia, a bunch of other little kind of bits of information, list of songs, their other social profiles. Sometimes there might be tour dates there. There might be singles. Depends what Google has available to display there. And so that's something that we can get. You don't have to be, a super famous artist to get that. So it just takes a little bit of work and knowing what to do. So then, below that, you have all kinds of other bits of information, like, the Wikipedia entries, a bunch of videos, lyrics, some of the tour dates from Songkick, things like that. So there's like, as a fan, if you're interested in this band, you want to find, learn about them or find something about them to do with them, then there's tons of content here. So this is a good example of what we want to go for that kind of search. Another example is tour dates. So if you have upcoming tour dates, you can see that you can have your whole list of tour dates in this carousel at the top of the search result, which is really nice. People can kind of browse your whole tour right there. And then if they click on any of those, they can see some specific information about the event with that event card just above the list of the main search result list there. So lots of really great information for fans. It's a little bit hard to see there, but at the bottom of that our event card, it says sources, bandsintown.com. And so Zardonics uses Bands in Town as his main platform for selling tickets. So if a fan clicks there, they can buy tickets, and bam, it's easy for the fan. So that's kind of what we want. And then to the right there, you have, for those who want to explore some of the music, things like that, learn a little bit more about Zardonic, they have some information to explore. So that's really a nice result, and that's something we want to go for. People search for albums. Again, you have a whole carousel of and obviously this is a band that has a long storied history of a lot of albums here. So there's a lot of content, but like you said, even if you're not a famous artist like Mudhoney, you can still get some nice information in that kind of carousel there at the top, and the also the little knowledge panel on the right hand side specific to the album Vanishing Point, in this case. And then for song names, same kind of thing. You can get a nice navigation card for all your songs. And you can get a nice little song knowledge panel right there with a link to watch the video on YouTube if there is one, and some other bits of information. So really great for fans, and that's something that we want to make sure that we're really kind of thinking about the fan experience and when they're searching for your band in search results. So quick stop for questions. I don't know if you have any big ones so far.
Yeah, so Nicole wants to know, is there a specific place on your website to list the keywords, or is it just how you word things in your news or your biography or other places on your website?
So we'll talk a bit about that coming up soon about optimizing your website. But basically, if there are some really specific keywords you want to go for, it's always good to have, like we said with that example earlier, if you have a single that you want to promote and really focus on, you might want to have a dedicated page in your website just for that one single that you can optimize around. But for the most part, you can just make sure that the content's on your site. Like if you don't have a tour calendar on your site with tour dates, and if people are searching for your tour dates, they're not going to find anything. There won't be anything on your site to find, kind of thing. So if you do have tour dates on your site, then Google is going to probably place that at the very top of search results. So one thing Google's really clear about is that if you, it will always give your website priority over any other sites. So if you have tour calendar on your site, but you also have tour dates on bands in town, generally your website should always be taken as the kind of the priority source of information, and Google will kind of give that priority. So so it's really just having the content on your site in a nice structured way.
So then, kind of piggybacking off of that, would you say that signing up for every tool out there is helpful for SEO? For example, other than posting tour dates on a website, would it also help to have them on Facebook, Bandcamp, Bands in Town, all these other kind of services?
It definitely doesn't hurt. You don't need to go over the top with it, of course, but definitely having them on your website first is generally the best practice. And like I said, Google is clear about that. If you think again, just thinking about the, if we were to think back to that result that we had for Elephantstone there, where there's all kinds of different information to discover about that band from all different sources. Their website was at the top, but they had Songkick and Wikipedia and YouTube and everything there. That's really great for fans. Gives them a lot of content to explore. So definitely using other platforms. Different kinds of platforms, different types of media, and different kinds of content, and having it all there for fans to explore is definitely a good idea. Like I said, don't go overboard. I don't think, but if you do have the content there, it all helps, and it just gives fans more things to interact with.
So I think maybe moving on into the next set of slides, and then we'll loop back for some more questions.
Awesome. I think that ties in pretty well. Yeah, perfect. That's actually good timing. That was a good question because it ties perfectly into this next slide, which is the entity. So I just want to touch on this point. So with all that kind of those knowledge panels and things that I talked about, like those little carousels and things, those all come from the knowledge graph, the Google Knowledge Graph. And It's different than Google search results in that it understands information on the web in a different way. So what it does is it actually understands entities. Entities are kind of the foundation of the knowledge panel. And an entity is anything that's notable, like it could be a person, like a celebrity. It could be a band. It could be like a politician. It could be a famous place. It could be anything at all. It could be a business, a brand, anything like that. So anything that is the notable thing is an entity. And so your website is, like I mentioned earlier, your website should be the hub of that entity. And Google again is really clear on that and says that that's how it likes information to be structured. But then all those other profiles and things around the web that you can use to, pardon me, to places where you can create content about your band, that all is part of your entity. So Google will, if done properly, Google will recognize that all those other things around the web about you are all connected, and it's all about you as a band, the entity. And so that the more you have as part of your entity, the more content out there, the better it is for you. And so one of the ways to make sure that that all ties together, because if you think about it, I mean, if your band, especially if your band name isn't unique in particular, things like that, Google, if you have content all over the web on different social media profiles, Google isn't necessarily going to know that they're all part of the same entity, that it's all this one band that is kind of attributed to all this different content. So you have to make sure that you connect the dots for Google. And the easiest way to do that is to just link back and forth from them. So it's pretty common practice, but it's an important one to just keep up. So just making sure that you link from your site to your Facebook page, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, SoundCloud, Wikipedia, Bandcamp, Bandsintown, anything you have like that, link to it from your site and link back to your site from those places. So yeah, that's really important to have those links, just so that Google can understand that they're all connected and all part of your one entity centered around your website. So we'll talk a little bit about optimizing your site. These are kind of general things, and we won't get into too much detail because these are really like relatively general recommendations. It applies to any website, not just a music website, or not just for musicians. So there's a lot of information out there about that. There's more in the ebook, but some general things you can do just as a best practice would be to add your site to Google Search Console. So you can just kind of Google what that is, and you can add your site there. It's very easy. You can submit your site map there, your website site map. So Google can crawl your site more easily, understand the structure of it and things like that. Having a nice clean URL structure, well-organized site, that kind of thing, lots of content, making sure that you optimize your title tags, meta descriptions, page content like that, just to be descriptive. You don't have to go over the top with keywords, but just making sure that they describe the page well. Interlinking and website structure, which is just making sure that all your pages are linked together and things like that. So there's some kind of technical SEO type stuff, and again, there's more. You can kind of Google those things or look at the ebook. And in the ebook I added a bunch of links to other resources out there that you can dig into to do more research if you like. It's sort of general SEO stuff for websites. So if you want to learn it, that information is there. And then page content and structure. So basically just structuring your page well, making sure that there's content on it, on each of your web pages on your site. And then just, like I said earlier, having, dedicated content pages for certain things like that you want to really, really focus on it or make sure that you rank for, like a new single, things like that. or if you want to sell, make sure that you rank for selling merch. Having make sure that you have a merch page on your site, that kind of thing. So that's about all the detail we'll get into today for this stuff. But yeah, tons of research you can do to dig more into that. So content pages for keywords. I just touched on this, but if you don't have content on your website for certain keywords like merch, then you will not rank for it. And if you don't rank for it, then Google will find something else to put there instead. So this is something that happened with, the Kalamazoo, Washington merch was a keyword that I tried, and Kalamazoo, Washington does not sell merch on his website. At least did not at the time. There's nowhere to buy it. So as a fan, you kind of, you have to go through a bit of, a fan might have looked through his site, tried to find it, didn't find it, looked somewhere else. There were third-party companies, Redbubble is the example here, selling merch. So this is a place where this artist may have actually lost some sales to a third-party company. So that's just, that's kind of a lesson, I guess, in making sure that you do have content on your site. Because if he did have a merch store on his site, he would be in first position, no question, and fans would find it very easily. So that's just kind of an example of why you need content on your site. So quick stop for questions.
Sure. So a couple questions about spelling of band names. If someone misspells their name, is there still a way to be sure that you'll be found in the search results?
It depends on the name, but generally Google's pretty good at understanding misspellings and understanding what it is you're trying to search for. It's kind of related to, it's called semantic search, where Google actually tries to understand not just what the word is. It doesn't just try to match the word that you put into the content it gives you, but actually tries to understand what you're actually searching for and what you mean. So it's generally pretty good at finding the right content when things are misspelled. But I guess it kind of depends on the misspelling. If it seems closer to something else that maybe is not your band, it might show something else. But yeah, I wouldn't be too worried about misspellings that much.
Mm-hmm. And then Gerald wants to know, can you use SEO to promote your personal Instagram page or Twitter profile?
Instagram or Twitter. As long as you have them there and they're named after you, and in the sense that they're, you have your artist name or band name in your description on Twitter and whatnot. And as long as you link to your profiles from your website so that Google knows that those are your profiles, then if somebody searches for your Twitter account or Instagram, whatever, they should find that should pop up in the first position. But yeah, that's kind of the only way that I can think of, at least, to promote your social accounts, is just making sure that if people are looking for them through SEO, if people are looking for them, that just to make sure that they can find them. And that usually shouldn't be a big problem if people are looking for that. The other way to do it would be, somebody that's just searching for your band name or artist name, just in general, like that example with Elephant Stone that we showed earlier. A lot of times, Google will place some of your more active social accounts on the first page, so they might see that there. That's probably a better way to promote it, actually, and because more people are going to search for your band name just by itself, probably. So in that case, the best thing to do is just make sure that they're linked really well from your other profiles, that they're really active, that you use them a lot, post a lot of content, things like that. And there's some schema stuff, which we'll get into towards the end of this, pretty soon here, actually, that covers that too. So you can specify to Google in a more structured way, like where your social profiles are, and that kind of helps connect them to your entity a little bit, a little bit stronger.
Mm-hmm. And one more question, then we'll move on again. If SEO is mainly driven by content on your website, what role do the meta tag keywords play in SEO?
Those are part of your content in the sense that it's on your page and it's part of the content that on your page that Google will read. Humans obviously aren't going to see it generally, but search engines do. But the meta keywords tag is kind of outdated. Google doesn't use that anymore. It doesn't really need the meta keyword tag anymore. That's not even required on a page. You can have it if you want, but I mean, it's not useful. What matters more is just having good written content on the page, and like descriptive content, and your title tags, meta descriptions are still really important. So it's more about the real content that people can see than the keyword tag. Yeah, but I guess that we'll move on for now.
Yeah, sounds good.
Perfect. Cool. So next thing we have here is establishing your Google account. So this is kind of an interesting thing. We put this kind of process together, and again, there's a whole like step-by-step thing in the ebook that you can get a lot more detail on for this. But this is all about kind of establishing your entity. So basically, the first thing, kind of fundamental thing you can do is make sure that Google knows that you are an entity, knows that you exist as a thing, your band that is, and knows that you are a band. So that's really important. It's just, telling Google, hey, I'm here, I'm a thing, and this is what I am. So this is a really good way to do that, and actually kind of an important way to do that as well, especially if you're, not a really established band that already has a strong, presence in search. So there's a few kind of steps to do. They're a little bit like, they're a little bit administration-y, like they're not very sexy or exciting, but they're not that hard to do. And if you follow our step in the ebook, it's super easy. Basically, you can go to Google My Business and create an account. You can specify your website and what type of entity you are and that kind of thing. In the process, you have to create a Google Plus page, which is silly, but because nobody uses Google Plus. But anyway, you can kind of ignore that. So do that. From there, you can go and again, there's links to all this stuff in the ebook. We'll share it with you after too, so it'll make more sense when you can see it. But you can go in and manage your brand account, so you can actually control what people see about you in the search results. Google gives brands this ability. So you can include a bit of information, including your links to your social profiles, which for the question earlier, it kind of ties into that. This is a way to directly tell Google, hey, these are the social profiles that are connected to this entity, and that'll influence what shows up when people search for you. So it's pretty cool. It's a way to like interact directly with Google. You don't SEO is usually not like that, so this is kind of a nice direct way to control those things. You can also add your music to Google Play. So one thing there's a couple things important to note here. One is that when you're going through this process, make sure that you're logged into the same account throughout, so that Google can see that it's all connected in the same account. So adding your music to Google Play, if you're still logged into your account where you created your brand account and stuff, will help Google understand that your songs, your music is tied to your entity. I would call this step kind of optional because there are other ways that we can communicate that to Google, and some people would rather go through the digital distribution service for this rather than do it themselves. So if you don't want to do this, don't worry about it. But it's kind of an optional thing you can do to help your music, help make sure that Google understands your entity and your music all as one thing. So one thing I want to note is that once you do those things, Google actually gives you the ability to, once you get a knowledge graph like this, in this example, you can actually go in and edit it directly, you can actually, like, there's a little edit button, and you can request changes. But you have to have gone through those previous steps first to do that. So it gives you a little more hands-on control in terms of what people see, which is really, really useful. So the next thing, and this is a really important step, is to create entries for Wikipedia, wikidata.org, and MusicBrainz. There's an article on Bandzoogle about how to get a Wikipedia entry. It's not that easy to do, but it can be done. So as you can see, and as we all know, with everyone who searches on Google sees this all the time, where you have the little bio there in that knowledge panel, and there's a little link to the Wikipedia page. So Google relies on Wikipedia for information about your band. So it's important to have that content there in Wikipedia. And then Wikidata and MusicBrainz is structured. It's not like it's not descriptive in the same way. It's really just like structured data, like what your band name is, what your songs are, really specifically kind of structured things like that. And that kind of data is useful for computers. They understand information easier when it's structured. So that's why it's important. And Google is really, really clear on that. And again, there's links in the ebook, but that'll kind of show you what Google says specifically on their own website, but in the support pages and stuff. But they're really specific about making sure that you do these things and enter your data there. So those are important steps. So a quick stop for questions.
So does using a hashtag such as hashtag my band name translate to better visibility in Google searches?
That's a good question. I think it would. I think where it would. I mean, any kind of, like, if you have a lot of activity and engagement happening in your social profiles, generally Google is able to pick up on some of those things. So if you're using hashtags and there's like an engagement happening that way, then I think that will help. If you're using it just to try to rank for keywords, I don't think that would be that effective. I don't think so. I'm trying to think of a scenario where that might help, but yeah, I would really just focus on more kind of organic engagement and things like that on Facebook, on social media.
Yeah, I can't think of any way that Google would pick up things like hashtags used on social media.
Yeah, like something, you see sometimes if you search for bands that have really active Twitter accounts, you will see like a little feed right in the search results page of some of their latest tweets. Well, that's about as far as it goes for social media and hashtags and stuff tying into SEO, I think.
How can we enhance SEO with how you were to write your blog?
That kind of ties into your keyword research. We'll go back to that first step here. So if there are, let's say you're starting on a tour. Let's just say, I'm just coming up with a random thing. You have a tour planned. If you start blogging about it, then and you're talking about your tour and your blog posts and stuff like that, then your blog posts are going to start coming up for those things, and that might help. Your blog posts will start coming up for those kinds of searches, like your band name and plus tour kind of thing. And that might help fans get a bit of an idea of where you're going to be going and what you're doing, and get them excited about it, things like that. So it can help you target certain keywords with that kind of content. If you don't if you say, we use that example from earlier about launching a new single, if you didn't want to necessarily, or you weren't able to create a dedicated page on your site for it, you could make a blog post instead about it. For example, where you talk about the single and say whatever you want to say to fans, like talk about how it all came about or whatever, and have a place for them to listen to it and stuff. And you could embed a player in the blog post or something. So you could definitely use blog posts in that way for targeting keywords. The best advice I think I'd have for blogging in general is just to do it. Because Google really relies heavily on content. Like it needs to see content on your website. And a lot of band websites don't have a lot of content on them because they're a lot of times really rich in other kinds of media, like music and videos and stuff and images. But Google really needs text content. So the more text content you have, the more you can kind of build, quote unquote, like authority around your band name. And that can help, especially if you're not ranking well for your own band name, for example. So if you have a really active content environment there happening on your website with a lot of text content, that can help you build authority for your own kind of band name.
And then how would you discover common keyword search terms to direct people who are not searching for you specifically? So if someone is Googling an artist that's similar to you, how would you find out what kind of keywords people are using?
Yeah, you could explore that. That would be, you use the Google keyword tool for that. So going back to that earlier on the keyword research phase near the beginning of the presentation there, you could, if you have any ideas about that, and that's where we, in one of the very early slides there, we talked about that. I think it was in the fan journey slide there. We talked about those affinity searches. So I have an example of that, which is a band, Signy, which is one of the members of that band was on our panel at South by Southwest. And so one of the things we tried was on their website, she wrote kind of a myth about the band. They had a kind of like a fantasy kind of myth kind of thing, concept for their band, with things related to the ocean, animals and things like that, like mythical things. And there's the idea was that if people are searching for, if people are interested in those topics and they search for them, if you can kind of rank for those things and attract those kinds of people to your site, with the idea that if they like those things, they might like your music. That's something you can do and try. It's very experimental. That's why I mentioned it earlier. There's no really good established tactic for that. So it's kind of, you can try it out and see if it works for you. But the way to do it would be to come up with some ideas, like like band, if you want to go after keyword, like bands like artists like Drake or something, artists who sound like Drake or something. And if you wanted to rank for those kinds of things, it's going to be a lot harder for you than ranking for your own band name. But the way to do it would be to be writing about that on your website. So that's where something like a blog might come in, where you just talk about that a lot on your site. And you might start to rank for some of those keywords. So basically come up with some ideas, plug them into that keyword tool, find out if people are searching for them. And if you want to go for it, then start building out that content on your site that basically addresses those kinds of topics.
Yeah, so I think we can move into the section on schema and then circle back for a few more questions.
Sounds good. So this is the last main section here, so we're closing in. This is kind of a fun section, though. I really like this stuff. And so this kind of goes back to what we talked about, the Wikidata stuff, where computers, i.e. Google search engines, they really like structured information. So Google, these are two quotes from Google themselves. This is not for me. This is actually something that Google has written, which is that they say when information is highly structured and predictable, search engines can more easily organize and display it in creative ways. And they say to publish markup on a page on your official website. So basically that's what schema is for publishing markup on your site that is highly structured and predictable, so that search engines can take it and do fun stuff with it. So there's a few different types of schema. and this ties very much into a lot of the other stuff we talked about. And this is all stuff that's really made that Google kind of does specifically for musicians. So it's something to take advantage of. So there's the music group schema and the same as markup. The music group and same as markup, which is, when I say markup, that's just kind of like it's a HTML coding thing that you add into the code that only computers see, humans don't see it. And schema is a type of markup. So I kind of use them interchangeably, but just that's not too confusing. So this is something you add to your website in the code, and it basically tells Google that this is a music group, as you can see here in that screenshot here, there. This is telling Google this is a music group. This is the name of the music group. This is the URL of the website. This is an image of the band. And then the same as bit there is basically telling Google here are all of our other social profiles. So this is ties into all those other things as well that we talked about, which is really communicating to Google that, hey, this is a thing. It's an entity. This is what we are, and here's some information about us. And you'll find that if you do this, Google will read it, and this is the kind of information that'll start showing up in search results for your band. So it looks kind of like I know it can be a little bit hard to kind of like grasp them sometimes, but search engines do really read this stuff and use it. So another type of schema that goes on your website, and I'm sorry if I might have skipped that. This is all stuff that goes on your website, and other websites also use it, like Bands in Town, and other third-party platforms also add this stuff to their sites as well automatically. So music album schema is another thing. So when you have music on your website, you can add this markup to that music when it's embedded, and it tells Google, because Google, obviously, if you just put music on your site without any accompanying information, Google will not understand what it is. So this is a way to tell Google, give Google a bunch of details about what this track is, what it's called, what album it comes from, what artist it is, and all that other stuff. So this is very cool. And again, Google reads that, and it'll use this to generate those little cards that show up when people search for your albums and stuff like that. This is where it's going to get that data from, is from this kind of thing, in a very real way. It really does use it. Another type is, the title of this card is not named correctly. This is event schema. So if you have any shows coming up, you can add structured data about your shows, and this is exactly, probably in most cases, exactly what will show up when people search for tour dates, like we showed you earlier. There was that Sardonic example, and they had Google showed the source was Bands in Town. In his case, if you have this on your website, you can tell Google where to buy tickets, where people can buy tickets, and all this kind of stuff. And Google will show that information in those knowledge cards for fans. So this is a way to get that information there. Yeah.
One question on this. So I don't know if you want to jump back to the event, but how would a member enter this information in Bandzoogle, or how would Google find it?
Yeah, for sure. That's actually, I think that's my next slide. Yes, how to implement it. So number one recommendation, use Bandzoogle. And of course we're biased, but we have actually worked on this stuff. We're the only website building platform that's recommended by Google for music event schema markup. So if you were to look through Google's support documentation about music event schema, you'll see us listed there as the only website platform that is recommended by them to use this, if you want to do this. There are other ways to do it, like you can code it yourself, which would be probably a nightmare unless you're a developer. You can use third-party platforms like Bands in Town, Songkick, things like that. Or there are, if you happen to use WordPress, there are plugins that you can use that Google lists. But with Bandzoogle, it's all built in. We publish some blog posts about how to just make sure that you set up your information on your site so that it'll be there, it'll show up. But if you follow those things, you don't even have to think about it. And we did some changes a little while ago to this markup, and we really did see, like, after, when we made those changes, we saw artists using Bandzoogle. We saw their search results pages improving like almost right away. Including my own. And not that I'm a famous musician by any measure, but I even noticed it from my own name. Yeah. So this is how you can implement it. Yeah. So if you don't, let's say you use another, let's say I use another website platform, for example. Your best bet is probably, like, it's not WordPress or Bandzoogle. Your best bet is to probably just rely on Bands in Town or Songkick. It's not the best thing because it's not your own website. But Songkick, Bands in Town, they do add that schema automatically as well. So you can kind of rely a little bit on those. And even if you do use Bandzoogle, you could even you could duplicate your events on Bands in Town, and it wouldn't hurt. Is if you do that, and I mentioned this in the ebook, really make sure that you consistently, your information is consistent everywhere. So if you have a show listed on your Bandzoogle site in your event calendar, and you have it also listed in Bands in Town, if there's any conflicting information, like you put the wrong dates on one or whatever, it's going to kind of mess everything up. So you have to make sure that everything's really consistent if you're going to use multiple platforms. Yeah, so hopefully that answers that question.
Then for example, the music album information, where does that pull from Bandzoogle? For example, what feature would have that information on Bandzoogle?
Yeah, you have to use the music. I think it's the store feature, but it's the music player when you add the feature to your site that allows you to list your albums with all the tracks, and people can play them. If you do that, if you use that feature, the built-in feature, then it's all automatic. You don't have to do anything other than upload it. So it's kind of convenient. There are a few other things, like with that you have to do specifically for, like, if you want to have the same as schema that we talked about earlier, you have to use the My Sites feature from Bandzoogle. And if you want the music event schema to work properly, you have to use there's a share button kind of option in that you have to enable, so that you get the links pointing to specific events that way. So there's a few little things to think about for some of them, but for the music album stuff, it's all you have to do is just use that feature from Bandzoogle, and it'll all be added automatically. One thing I would note, though, is that obviously when we add the schema to your site, it pulls information from, like, from your events, for example. It'll automatically pull the details from what you've added to your event. So it's really important to add as much descriptive information as you can to your events when you set them up. And then Bandzoogle will pull from that to create the schema for you. Yeah, so that's about it for that. Any other questions on that? Should I move on?
Yeah, let's jump into the next slide.
Next one. Okay. That was a question, so we just did that. So just really quickly, we're almost done here. It's 20 after 1, so I know everyone's got things to do. So really quickly here, create videos for every song and put them on YouTube. As we saw earlier, if people are searching for your songs, there's the possibility of getting a little video, still for your song with a link pointing to YouTube, which is really cool for fans. It's really, it's a nice way for them to hear your music, obviously, if they want to. So just create videos for all your music, put it on YouTube, make sure it's all named really well and all that kind of stuff. And make sure it's all, you optimize it all properly, like, put a bunch of stuff in the description, link back to your site, et cetera, et cetera. And that'll help that video show up in search results for your song names. And you can even do something, you don't even have to make a music video. You could just have a still image playing or something. Anything you can do, whatever you're able to do for that. So that's recommended. And yeah, lastly, just track your SEO results. So the best way to do that is Google Analytics. It's free. If you don't already use it, install it on your site. It's not that hard to do. With Bandzoogle, it's even easier. And yeah, so little instructions here on how to find your organic traffic to your site. So you can see how much traffic you're getting from search engines and what pages they're going to and stuff. So, excuse me. So it's really nice. It's one thing to work on all this stuff and think about the theory of it and have all these ideas, but it's really rewarding when you actually start to see people come into your site, from search engines, and it becomes a lot more meaningful and tangible at that point. So it's really important to measure it just for so you can feel the progress happening. So download the ebook here. We swept through this whole topic really quickly. There's so much more detail to go into. There are other things we can talk about. So I would recommend, if you want to know more, learn more, dig into the ebook. And if you still have more questions, we have the hashtag, use the hashtag, I will answer. If you want help from the support team, use that, just get in touch, and we can help. If you're using Bandzoogle with the stuff. And I believe that's it. This is the last slide. You can reach us on socials. Do you have anything else to add, Desi? Any other questions? Do we have time for questions?
I asked one more time. If anyone has any last minute questions, let us know. We'll answer maybe 2 more.
Sure.
Get them in. Maybe one thing to cover, covered it earlier, but it's kind of a hard topic to maybe understand. After you've determined what keywords you're going to use, where can you add those on your website?
Oh yeah. That's a good question. So if you look at I can't go back to the slide now, but if you look at the stat example, it comes from the ebook. So it's in the ebook, which is that example of the keyword research document. The keyword research that I had put together for Tame Impala. So what I did is I kind of grouped keywords together, like people searching for tour dates, people searching for song names, that kind of thing. So the best thing to do is, like, once you understand what people are looking for and how people are searching, like I kind of said it earlier too, like just make sure you have the content on the site, and that's really the main thing. Like, let's say you want to make sure people can find, if they're searching for some of your song lyrics, like you have like the new single coming out, people might search for song lyrics. So a good way to make sure that those keywords are there is just to have a page on your site with the lyrics for that song. You can make sure that the URL of the page has, that the song title in it. For example, make sure the lyrics are on the page, of course. That's kind of all you need to do. You don't need to over optimize for keywords necessarily. You just have to make sure that you have content on your site that addresses those searches, so people can find, find the lyrics on your site. That's kind of all you need to do, really.
And then
I don't know if that kind of answers it.
No, I think that's good. How would you, if you wanted to rank for a really general search term like house concert or something like that, how could you increase your SEO for those kind of keywords?
Yeah. I don't go too deep on that, just because it would be so hard to do. I mean, most artists don't, as we saw earlier in this webinar, most artists aren't at the point yet where they have really good visibility on their own band names. So that's, I'm not sure to even think about trying to rank for other kinds of search terms until you really have your own band name nailed. And that's the case with any kind of business too. Like if we weren't ranking number 1 for Bandzoogle yet, that indicates a huge problem in SEO, and there would be no point at all in trying to rank for any other keyword if we're not ranking for our own if not ranking for Bandzoogle yet, kind of thing. So so it's really important to make sure you're really tight on your own keywords first. And then once you have that, then yeah, you could start thinking about some other kind of more general keywords. Those are going to be a lot harder to get because you're going to be competing against a lot of people who are maybe have different kind of probably have big budgets or in some cases or whatever. So, but if you do want to do it, if you want to tackle it, again, it comes down to content. So, making sure that you do talk about it, like, if you used your blog or whatever you can use to talk about that topic. And then also try to get links from other websites that talk about the topic too. We didn't talk much about backlinks, but when you're getting into general search terms like that, it's very important to have links from other authoritative websites, and that tells Google that you're an authority on that topic as well. So yeah, links and content, would be the quick answer to that.
Mm-hmm. All right, we'll do one more question here. And that's another one that we kind of touched on earlier, but this one has a better example we can take a look at. My name is used by other artists with different spellings. How can I use my name to show up when people search for an alternate spelling?
Yeah, that's tough because I guess it depends how different it is from the other ones. The best thing you could do, I think, is well, I think there's two things. One is in a lot of cases, like we saw with the broken back example, like in their case, they have to just kind of rely on search refinement. So people searching for broken back band or broken back music. So if the other people who are ranking for your name are hopefully not musicians, then people might search for your name and then add music or whatever to it, or musician or band to the end of it, just to refine the search term a little. And so that's one thing to think about. The other thing you could try to do is, depending on how famous they are, if they're not super, super famous, maybe you have a chance to kind of compete in terms of who's the most authoritative for that search term. And so you can kind of work on, work on building up your entity, the authority of your entity. And you do that by doing what we talked about earlier, which is like, linking to all having content all around your entity, all these different social things, linking them together, going through all those processes we talked about to kind of build up your entity in a sense, I guess. And that might help you kind of build more authority over the other people if they're not, unless they're like, unless they're like Barack Obama or something, and it's hopeless. But if they're not super famous, then you might have a chance.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a pretty good place to end on. Thank you for sticking with us. I know we went way over, but there's a lot to cover here. So like I said, you'll receive an email shortly with a link to replay the webinar, as well as a link to the ebook and lots of other goodies. So hopefully this was helpful. If you guys have any other questions, you can always reach us 7 days a week through the help tab in your account. And we hope to see you on the next webinar. Have a good day, guys.
Cool. All right. Yeah, that's perfect. Well, yeah, thanks everybody. And if you have any other questions, again, I'm going to jump on Twitter after this, and we'll go from there. Anything else to cover, Desi, or?
I think we're all set.
Awesome. All right. Thank you, guys. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for joining.